Shalom. Shalom. This is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from the land of Israel. Today we are going to discuss the hostage war in Gaza in August 2025. And we're going to also discuss something about the international situation and the campaign of dehumanizing the Jewish people in the state of Israel, spreading calumnies and lies and anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic slanders against Jewish people and the causes of Western civilization and the values of Western civilization. First of all, the war with Hamas from the 7th of October 2023, or 7th of October 2023, out of Gaza. Hamas was ruled by Gaza. What is Hamas? Hamas is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood was created in the 1920s in Egypt. It's a fanatical organization which believes in the extermination of the Jewish people everywhere, the extirpation of the Jewish religion. Not only that, but the eventual dominance of Islam over all countries of the earth. We're pro-Nazi in the Second World War. They still are pro-Nazi at present. They have inclinations similar to those of the Nazis. If anything, some of them are even more fanatically devoted to the ultimate goal of destroying the Jewish people, doing as much harm as they possibly can to the Jewish people, even at the expense of their own well-being. They don't really care about their own people or anything else, as will become apparent in this talk. At all events, on the 7th of October 2023, Gaza was locked up behind a fence, a security barrier that Israel had placed there due to previous attacks, terrorist attacks. On the 7th of October 2023, a group of well-trained, very well-trained and rehearsed, well-practiced Hamas terrorists, about 1,500 of them, invaded Israel after having practiced getting over the wall, getting past the barriers in open sight of Israeli security forces, even being filmed doing it, and having been taken seriously enough for preventive messages, not having been taken seriously enough for preventive measures to have been put in place. So they attacked the Israelis. They attacked Israeli settlements near Gaza. Also attacked a music festival that was going on at that time. It was a Saturday. It was Simchat Torah. It was a holiday. And a lot of people were on holiday. Also had a music festival, which thousands of attendants, people there dressed, or some of them in various stages of undress, dancing and singing to the music in the early hours of the morning when the attack hit them. And many were captured and killed, tortured, raped, abused. And this didn't only happen to the dancers, it also happened to people in the neighboring settlements in kibbutzim and different areas that were in different areas that belonged to Israel that were overrun by Hamas. Many were killed, many were taken captive. Almost 2,000 Israelis or citizens of Israel or guests of Israel were taken captive. Many of those who were not killed have been released, apart from 50. There are still 50 Israeli captives that Hamas has hold of and is not releasing, despite everything. Hamas still has 50 Israeli captives that it took, that it abducted, and is not releasing, and that is abusing, in some cases filming the abuse it is doing to them for propaganda. The purposes, apparently, there are elements in the world today who like to see bad things done to Jews, or they like to see women abused, Jewish women abused on the internet, in dark places of the internet. This is done, being done, and Hamas is responsible for it. And for obvious reasons, no one really talks about it, but it's there. Israel doesn't want to talk about it because the families of the people concerned are not enthusiastic about having their family members so presented. Also, it's not good for morale. And Hamas, for its part, does not want the respectable elements amongst its supporters to be embarrassed or disconcerted. But it does want others of its supporters to get their kicks, to receive a boost to their perverse inclinations through these video clips of what they have done or are doing to the Israeli captives. Like it or not, some of the support that the Nazis received, some of the support, perhaps a great deal of the support of its support, in concerning those who carried out its policies, was the opportunity and the fact that they were killing Jews, that they were sadistically treating Jews. There are certain elements that wanted to participate in this. So too, Hamas receives its own support from this same subgroup, from the same underlying sector of the general public. The Arabs claim that over 61,000 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of the war, more than 152,000 injured. So these numbers are possibly grossly inflated, but a good number have been killed. Even if you reduce them by several by factors over, you still get, by a conservative estimate, would still leave a large number of casualties on their side. 100,000 Israelis were displaced at the height of the conflict. This is quietened down now. Most Israelis are carrying on quite well, apart from those who are bereaved or have members of their family who are in captivity, who have otherwise suffered. Israel, the president, Israel controls about 2/3 of the territory of Gaza. It does not control all of Gaza. That is what we're talking about in the news. It controls about 2/3 of the territory of Gaza. The 1/3 that it does not control is where most of the people are. And Israel has some avenues of ingress to the area. It can go in, it can go out, it can arrest people, it can do different things, it can even attempt to bring aid into the population. But everywhere it goes, it has to face potential hostilities. And the Israeli government does not like to see its people killed or injured. And also, due to the nature of Israeli democracy, an attitude that allowed Jewish soldiers to be killed or injured or placed in unnecessary danger would not be very popular, would not be possible even. So this is a point that we have. So this sums up the situation. Israel does not control the area where most of the people of Gaza are to be found. but it has the ability to go into it, or into most of it, and to do things that only to a limited degree. And Hamas knows this. Hamas knows what is going on. Hamas may be fanatics, maybe sound to us somewhat stupid, self-destructive maniacs, but in some ways they are quite precipient. They're quite knowledgeable and aware of what is going on and what can be done, what cannot be done. And it sees all the anti-Israeli propaganda, much of it lies, claiming that Israel is killing babies, killing the civilians, doing this and that, outright falsehoods in most cases, or gross exaggerations at the best in other cases. And these lies are propagated by people that you wouldn't like to let in your house to drink a cup of coffee with you. They're lowlifes. They are not good people. They are not saints themselves. They are very selective in what atrocities they protest against. Where the Jews are concerned, where Israel is concerned, they will protest against Israel doing whatever it has done or has not done, whatever it has claimed, whatever it has been claimed that it has done, whatever has been alleged against it, they will talk about it and repeat it and go on and on about it. In other places in the world where much worse things are happening, even in their worst descriptions, for instance, in the Sudan, where more than 500,000 children, black children, often Muslim children, have been killed by other black peoples who are also Muslim, but perhaps a better greater Muslim than they are. You have Muslims in the Sudan who have some Arab blood and speak Arabic. They consider themselves Arabs, and they're carrying on a genocide against the black Muslims and the black pagans and Christians in the Sudan. And you hear very little about it. I don't hear very much about it, but it's there. Look it up, it's there, and it's undeniable, and it's even acknowledged by others that it is going on. But you don't see any protests about it. You don't people go making marches against it. You don't see people condemning the Arab elements involved in it. The Muslim countries that support these Muslim fanatics and killing other Muslims and other black people. You don't see anything whatsoever. Even sanctions are not talked about. And there are quite a few other examples that we could quote along these same lines. The anti-Israeli propaganda is very selective, as long as the Jews are concerned, as long as you can say something about the Jews, then go for it, talk about it, spread it. Persecute Jews, discriminate against them because of it. Do not let them onto their campuses, onto their own universities. Do not let them tread in their places in America where Hamas money rules, where Qatar has subsidized. The learning institutions, Jews are discriminated against. Programs are designed to present Israel and the Jews in a negative light. And campus policy has been discriminatory against Jews. The Arab-Muslim infiltration of academic institutes in the USA has been going on for the last 50 years. The Saudis are also doing it. The Saudis are similar to Hamas, but similar to the Muslim Brotherhood, but they're somewhat different in their points of emphasis. The Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood, incidentally, the Muslim Brotherhood also has rulership in Turkey. Erdogan is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, but Turkey is based on has a democratic constitution, has democratic institutions. In some ways, it is a totalitarian state. They do what they like. They override the rights written in their constitution, but nevertheless, at least on paper, at least formally, they have an obligation to maintain a basic semblance of civilized behavior, so they are not as bad as Hamas is in Gaza. But nevertheless, Turkey itself is also a Muslim Brotherhood state, similar to Hamas. And the attitude of Hamas seems to be that they want to get Israel, get the Jews out of the land of Israel, first of all. Together with that, to kill the Jews wherever they are, to encourage other nations to persecute Jews, and for Arabs to be allowed or unable to kill Jews elsewhere, and also to take over the West and to destroy the West, to destroy Western civilization. Saudi is similar to Hamas in some ways. Saudi represents another branch of Islamic fanaticism. Saudi is in favor of making people Muslims. It spends millions of dollars. It's been doing this ages ago, almost 100 years ago, paying for preachers to go to primitive areas and to convert people to Islam. And it also is in favor of ultimately destroying the West, taking over the West. But in the meantime, they have to survive. The rulers of Saudi are belong to a family, one big family, and their emphasis is ensuring their own survival, their own continuation, their own rulership, also their own prosperity, along with their fanatical Islamic ambitions. And in many cases, if they have to choose between their relative well-being and advancing the cause of Islam, they would usually take the option of self-preservation that helps them survive. Whereas Hamas is more self-destructive. They are similar to ISIS and Daesh and other fanatical Islamics who are prepared to commit suicide attacks, suicide attitudes, and to do whatever they can, even at the cost of their own lives, in order to harm Jewish people. And they are controlling Hamas, and their sensitivity to self-survival, to continuation, is less. And they also don't believe in intermediate stages, but doing the maximum straight away as much as they can. That is a difference between Hamas and Saudi. Saudi is more sane, more moderate, but its ultimate goals are just as extreme as those of anyone else. So Saudi has been preparing American academia, buying up university seats, funding colleges, funding universities for decades. Now, Qatar is doing the same, but much more intensively and much more aggressively. And much more generously. It is giving much more money and not asking questions about it. And naturally, those who receive the money are very pleased to find some justification for taking it. And they are attacking the state of Israel, attacking the Jewish people. Both Hamas and Saudi are fanatically anti-Jewish. And Saudi, from the very beginning, they have been using anti-Zionist tracts, anti-Zionist propaganda that existed from before the First World War in the 19th century, and they've been regurgitating old tales, old slanders, and lies about the Jews doing all kinds of things. And none of these are true, but they don't really care whether they're true or not. They represent a higher truth. In other words, they are depicting the Jews in ways that they want the Jews to be depicted in order to justify doing bad things to them. And in recent months, the propaganda against Israel has reached a greater intensity than it had beforehand. Every day, more and more programs, more and more news presentators are showing the Muslim side of things, depicting Gaza as suffering, of children dying of hunger, and blaming it all on Israel, and also calling for sanctions to be taken against Israel, and even for military intervention against Israel. The UN officials and also the president of Ireland, someone called Higgins, have been openly saying such things and have had their words repeated and emphasized in the media. Hamas itself regularly uses hospitals in Gaza as bases to store rockets, bases for to conduct its operations against Israel, uses civilians as human shields. Supplies of food that Israel sends in or that international organizations send in, these supplies of food are often hijacked by Hamas. They're hijacked and destroyed, or Hamas resells them at inflated prices. And when ordinary citizens try and get their hands on this aid, there have been cases where Hamas have fired shots at them and killed some of them to deter them. In other words, Hamas wants the aid to reach it, belong to it, and it will distribute it as it sees fit. And this is what we have. Hamas wants the Arabs to suffer because this makes it for good press. It makes clickbait on the internet. Suffering is popular. Hamas wants the Arabs to suffer in order to arouse sympathy amongst the world community. The world media and academia, backed by money from Qatar and elsewhere, wants the people of Gaza to suffer as much as possible, just as long as Israel can somehow be blamed for it. This is their war strategy. Protests against Israel are not intended to alleviate the plight of the Palestinians, but rather to paint Israel in a negative light and to arouse world opinion against the Jewish people.